Parker McCullum. Burn It Down Tour 2024, June 27th, Wells Fargo Arena. ACM Best New Artist, Parker McCullum Live, with special guest Corey Kent. Finally got a handle on you. What in the hell does a man? On sale now at IowaEventCenter.com. Parker McCullum Live.
We recommend listening to the CW Pod with a glass of Steeple Ridge Bourbon. Grown, distilled, well-rested, and bottled in Erling, Iowa. Now from the Channel Seed Studios, this is the CW Pod, fueled by Steeple Ridge.
You guys are in for a treat today.
Can we comment about the advertising? Was that supposed to be you at the end with that full head of hair and the?
No,
because
that was an actor.
You're an actor.
Yeah, allegedly.
I did just mention last night to somebody I was going to be on the pod with you, and they're like, "Is that guy from the Snip commercial?"
That's me.
That's you.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say, "Is that guy from Bleacher Bums?"
No,
Iowa State, 2004. ISU
Still not
Theater.
over that. Can't believe you beat me in my chosen field of acting. You beat me out.
The best part of the whole story is that I retired. That was the last
I
piece
know.
of like,
It's
stage
so
theater I've ever done.
insulting.
Yeah, I
You
just
just-
walked away.
I'm a Cubs fan. I was so excited to be in Bleacher Bums. I auditioned. You of all people get it over me, and I don't even get cast in the damn play.
I will say, looking back at that, I don't think I did a very good Marvin.
You want another try? Because now we're getting to be the actual appropriate ages.
I think I could do it a lot better now.
You turn 40 in just a couple of days.
I did.
Saturday.
Yeah. So here we are. My old buddy Scott Siepker is with me. So a lot going on here. Okay. This is going to be like, this is legit a pod. Everybody needs to open up your mind a little bit for what's going to happen here over the next hour. Because this is.
Oh, we only get 1 hour? Okay.
Well, this isn't, debating the college football playoff here.
Nope.
Like, this is none of that.
Something much more important.
You need to pour yourself a glass of Steeple Ridge Bourbon or two for this one. Actually, it's not a terrible idea. You want to have a little whiskey?
I do.
Aiden,
a little.
could you pour us a little bit of whiskey in those solo cups right there? That would be fantastic. How about we do the sweet mash rye? A little bit of that?
Okay.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Aiden.
you.
Because this is a whiskey drinking podcast. So again, I am turning 40, and Scott and I, we have a text group that we're a part of that has just basically over the last month turned into debates about nuclear war, and robots taking over the world, and Armageddon, really, right?
Yeah, and I've always said that group text chat boxes is the best way to have nuanced conversation. Definitely,
absolutely. Just 2024,
one
man.
sentence at a time.
So Scott and I are similar in many ways. We are very different in other ways, and I'm pretty convinced that Armageddon is upon us. Scott has a much more rosy, optimistic on the future of our world.
Yeah,
and it all kind of starts tomorrow. This is where I kind of wanted to start with this presidential debate, and like part of my just bearish view on the world in general is that these two guys are the best we can come up with in 2024, and that I mean really, like they're going to be like stuttering, like they're never going to be able to talk, like, and Trump's just going to be yelling, and then Biden's going to be like falling asleep.
Red Solo
cup. Red Solo cup or
Toby
Steeple
Keith.
Ridge Bourbon. Thank you very much, Aiden Wyatt. We appreciate that. That sweet mash rye is so good. That's so
I haven't
good.
had that before.
So we're going to talk about that a little bit.
That's good.
And then we're going to get into some of these other topics. So again, a very deep conversation here in the Channel Seed Studios today.
And we both graduated from Iowa State University, so we're deeply intelligent on many issues.
Your degree was in what?
Psychology and religious studies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That is not using both of those on a daily basis.
Yeah, that religious studies minor is really, it's changed my life.
So I was journalism and political science. So I was.
Oh, those are much more applicable to your actual life.
Yeah.
What was I doing?
Well, I do
Getting
know
beat out in acting by you.
that you're a guy who I like sitting at the bar with and like diving into things. We've done this a lot over the years, and I think it's fun to just do it here
Hell
for
yeah.
all to hear, because it's fun. I am turning. You're not 40
I
yet.
am, yeah. I turned 40. I'm 41.
Oh yeah, you
Yeah,
are a
yeah, because
little
I'm 1
yeah,
year older than
okay.
you.
So you just think about things differently when you get to be this age. And like we used to be, oh, do you like Bryson DeChambeau? No, he's a douchebag. No, I love him. And
I'm Team Koepka.
Now like I'm sending out links of Putin and Kim Jong-un having these meetings together, these
Kim
summits,
Jong-il.
whatever. It's all the same. It doesn't matter. Little Rocket Man, that's all I know. You know. But where are you at on this presidential debate? Because again, like to me, I hate where we're at, because one, I like this is the best we got, and two, I don't think any of it matters. I don't think any of the news matters, because most of the electorate doesn't even care. It's just about what side you're on. They don't even care about the issues anymore, and half the time it's not even true anyways. So what's the point?
Well, I think looking at this stuff historically, because now as we get older, and I can't believe I hope the midlife point, or, I'm still thinking 50 is midlife, because I really want to make it to triple digits. But as you get to this age, one thing I've really noticed over the last couple of years is, because I've been alive for 4 decades now, I can see the cycles of things and how things really bubble up. Then they go away, and to a point where you forget about them till they bubble up again. And I think one of these is the North Korea saber rattling is just, it's one of these things. It pops up every once in a while, every couple of years. We all get excited and scared. It goes away. Then when the North Korean government realizes, oh, we need to probably do something again,
Get them all amped up.
Just keep people away from actually invading us. Then they go through this cycle again. This is, and it's even to the Caitlin Clark situation. It's hard for me to get wrapped up in the day-to-day of that, because you know how this is going to turn out in 2 to 3 years. She's going to be a veteran in the league. She's going to be accepted because her influence is so great, and she is so great, especially if she starts really winning. Then all of this that we're going through right now, we'll look back and we'll have moved past it. And so with this presidential debate,
what's the point?
I'm not quite sure that it's even going to happen yet.
Nobody's mind is going to change on Thursday night.
I think
who could be on the fence?
If you look at the polling, I'm not making any judgment value, because Trump is going to win Iowa. I don't see anything changing on that. But when we're looking at places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and that's probably going to go there. Michigan, you have all these battleground states where I think what's possible is that the more that Trump talks, the more the people that maybe voted for him 2 times are just kind of on the fence, and they're like, I'm just not going to vote. I'm just not going to go through with it. So I see that happening more likely. But yeah, nobody's generally going to change. I don't see people who voted for Trump twice switching to Biden, and I don't see, obviously, Biden people switching to Trump.
No.
I see just possibly there'll be an eroding of the 2020 support that each of them had.
So this is my bearish take on humanity in general, because you talk about these ebbs and flows, right? And you're right. That's always been a part of our society. You go back to the 60s, you go back, every generation has had these moments in time where things were like just hot. Everybody's running hot, right? And it was a lot worse way back in the day when you had world wars. And talk to, if you have grandparents alive who lived through the Great Depression, like talk to these people. Like they've had it a hell of a lot worse than we do, right? But grandma didn't have Facebook, right? And grandpa couldn't just fire off a tweet and rally millions of people to and radicalize them like as quickly as it used to be. You're on the Western frontier in the and the Cowboys come to town, and we're all sitting at the saloon together, and
Or it
that's
took
how
somebody-
ideas spread. And right, like it took decades sometimes for these ideas to spread. Now they can spread, and we've seen this with like terrorist groups around the world, right? Like you've seen this with some of the uprisings, the really good democratic uprisings that we saw in the Middle East.
Yep.
And we saw it in our own country on January 6th, 2021, right? Like this was just the insurrection that like all these people met up because of social media, and they said, okay, we're going to do this. And then mob mentality starts, and one thing leads to another. Now you have people dead, and then some are in prison, right? Like it's just like, to me, this just feels so different because of how we communicate.
I think that every generation, I feel the same way you do, Chris. I do feel it, but I'll click into every generation thinks the younger generations are messing this thing up. I
don't necessarily think it's the younger. I think we're a grave part of it.
Well, we definitely, I mean, we are raising that generation.
Yeah.
We are. But really, we all die eventually. And then it is the younger generation who decides whether or not this thing keeps going on or not. I look at, like, say, the presidential debate, and we all get worried about it. Realize presidential debates are pretty new, pretty modern.
Yeah. Really, they are.
They are.
Think about
and
it.
if you think back to some of the other presidents that we've had, some that you would consider great, Woodrow Wilson certainly has an interesting resume, but did get us through World War I. But by the end, he was incapacitated. His wife was essentially running the country at that time. He couldn't have made it through a debate. You look at FDR, I compare what FDR and Biden are doing similarly, is that FDR knew in his last go, his fourth term, that he probably wasn't going to make it. And so, but he ran because World War II was coming to an end, and he thought he was the best person to take care of that.
He needed to see it through.
Yeah. But for me, I hold that against him, because we did not vote for Harry Truman. We should have had the opportunity as Americans to know who was going. Now, at the time, we didn't know he was going to have to choose
feel that
the
way
atom
with
bomb.
Joe Biden right now?
I feel Joe Biden right now feels that his only job has ever been as president is to stop Donald Trump from becoming president.
Yeah.
And he has to know, or maybe the people around him know, or whatever it is. If he's too demented, I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, we don't.
I don't know. But I know he's not as sharp as he used to be, because I once listened to him ramble on and on and on about geopolitics at the Ames Library in 2006. The guy was sharp back then. He could put a sentence together. Obviously, I'm sad we have to talk about this, about our president.
But for what, we're not trying to be disrespectful.
No.
We're just calling it how we see it.
And what I'm saying is, he, like FDR, he believes he is the person to do this. And I don't know if he'll make it through the second term, which is why, for my money, if you were looking at and trying to elevate yourself to a George Washington type character and an American Cincinnatus, if you will, is that you are willing to step aside. And because Joe Biden's health is not good, I would have preferred, and I would do the same thing with Trump. I wish they both would just have stepped away, but that's just not the place that we're at. But to your point, or your question about why I'm more hopeful, is that I think, to me, I could be wrong, but right now the trends seem to be that Trump is eroding and Biden is sort of holding, and he's also raising so much money that he'll win this election. And after that, I hope
he'll die.
We will have a we will go back. Like to do these pendulum swings. We've been on the extremes. I'm hopeful that after this next election, we're going to get some moderate voices again, and really have the next presidential election. We're going to have solid, valuable choices. That might seem optimistic, but I think America is ready for that. I think we want
think that these two guys are, and I don't even know if it's Biden. I think it's more like just, I feel like the Democrats have just, like you said, responded to Trump, and Trump was just so loud and boisterous. It was just like combative thing that we had never really seen before.
Nobody could beat him in a debate.
Yeah,
because he just played at different.
Yeah,
except as
and
Shane
he's an
Gillis,
actor, like he's a showman. Like
he's got some comedian aspects to him.
So then the Democrats, like, they get more polarized too, right? And like what's funny is, like these people who really hate Joe Biden, which most MAGA conservatives do. It's like, God, you guys think that like he's liberal? Like, what if they would have elected Elizabeth Warren, like, or Bernie Sanders? Like, that's like straight, you're towing on socialism there, right? Like, I mean, you see what I'm saying? Like, I have so little faith in our society right now to come together in any sense. Like what's fascinating to me. So I do this every summer where I pick a topic and I just study it, and I'll read 4 or 5 books about it. This year's been the Cold War, because I watched that documentary that me and Hassel have been.
And I just started, and it is really nice.
So well done. But I just read a biography on Reagan, and it's like that guy back then, the liberals just hated him.
Yes.
Now he would probably be considered left of center in most ways, not all.
The politics have changed so much.
Isn't it crazy to think about that, though?
He definitely is anti-Russia, and we do see now more on the right.
But there were
more pro-Russia going on, and Reagan. If Reagan knew,
he just hated communism. That was his thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And
being an actor, he was very much against the Actors Guild that was out in California at the time. Like, he hated anything to do with pickets and any of that.
And
stuff.
People thought he was a bit of a joke because he was the guy who was in a movie with a monkey or a chimpanzee, whatever it was.
Is it the Space one? Or
I think maybe, was there more than one? I know there's at least one.
Ronald Reagan had ebbs and flows in his career, where he was like the man, and then he was like a joke.
His memory not being there at the end.
Nancy Reagan was basically our president. Yep. I mean, according to many people.
And so you see this, and so I know you get discontented, but I just want to let you know that these things have happened before in American history, and we have a short history.
Not with social media.
Not with social media, but they were saying the same thing when books came out. Why do you think everyone, like all the religious people were that, because they ran everything back then? Why we need to make sure only the clergy knows how to read. We're going to keep all the books in Latin, for instance, so that the peasant doesn't read, because what if the peasant becomes intelligent and educated? They'll be able to be powerful, because that education, knowledge is power. And so you try and hold that stuff. Now, social media, certainly, it's not brand new anymore. It's a generation old as we're trying to figure this stuff out. But by the time social media is going to be able to really destroy us, I think social media will have died out, and something new will have replaced it, probably in the virtual reality space.
You guys enjoying that Steeple Ridge Bourbon yet? Cheers. Actually, you don't need to do the shot thing when you're just sipping on bourbon.
No, and I can't say it's been a long time. Maybe my Iowa State days where I use a solo Coke.
Green bottle of Steeple Ridge is some of the best shit you will ever find. I'm serious. Like, it is top 10 in the world. Some people have rated it that.
Okay,
too.
Nice.
Made over there in early. I'm not kidding. It's
your
awesome.
rankings are the only ones that matter, though.
It is freaking good.
And just to say, we're talking relatively impassionately. We're staying out of the nuances of it, and because I feel like that's really the best way to talk about these things.
Absolutely,
you have to sort of get some of the emotion out, so you can see it, and that's something that's hard to do.
So here's what's happened to me, and I'll just throw it all out there. Raised in Southwest Iowa, highly conservative family, very conservative. Not really a evangelical conservative, but just fiscal, military family. Come from a long line of military people. That type of conservative. Go off to college, and oh my God, like there's people who aren't just white here, right? Like you go from Page County to. And I loved it. Like I loved being in acting classes with our friend Ellis from Britain, who didn't wear shoes, and there's black people, and like this was amazing. Like
Hiawatha was in those
Hiawatha,
classes,
Loomis P. Like I had so much fun, like meeting these people who were so different from me, and then we would go out to Cafe Baudelaire, and we would, like I loved it.
Long Island iced tea.
It was my favorite part of college. Was just seeing this other like stuff.
Well, you have a vast hunger for knowledge and experiences. So college is perfect for a guy like you.
I would have been in college for 20 years if they would have let me.
I stayed an entire semester for no reason.
Just to be there.
I just didn't want to leave.
So I went pretty not radical left, but like I definitely like leaned left. I definitely consider myself to be a moderate, but definitely a social liberal.
Mhm.
Like gay people should be able to do whatever they want. Like the one thing I don't get is I understand the not wanting men to like run track against women. I understand that. I don't like how like there's this portion of our society that seems to be just picking on these people that are pretty fragile mentally as far as the suicide rates and stuff go to begin with. Like they're having a hard time enough already. I don't like how we're like villainizing them. Like that's a big thing right now. I guess my point is, I don't know why I felt the need to say that, but I did. What has happened with me is the Trump stuff, and then not really Biden, but the really loud members of the Democrats. They've made me crave John Kasich,
Mitt Romney.
Elizabeth Cheney, Mitt Romney. I really liked Buttigieg. I felt like he was my guy who in the last election he didn't have the experience, but I like that he just seemed like a rational guy.
You will get another chance to vote for him. I mean, he's Secretary of Transportation now. I would think that he'll be in running for Secretary of State in the second Biden term if it comes out.
I want some like kind, rational people, and really, your policy like it matters, but it matters less to me. I just want kind, qualified, rational people, and that takes Joe Biden out. I'm sorry, like I've watched enough. I don't think he's qualified. I don't
absolutely.
I'm not trying to be rude. Trump is like, to me, he stokes too much anger. Like we need to turn everything down a little bit. And I'm not talking about their policies. That's just what I am craving. You think enough of America is like me to get these people through a primary.
I think that this isn't so much about, if you were to somehow create a vacuum and start fresh, I don't think Trump or Biden has a chance in their party. However, the way that our two-party system works is that when you're the president, for instance, I'll use this, you now control your party. So the Republican Party has essentially acquiesced and become the branch of the Trump party.
Yeah. Which I don't feel like Biden's done that, though.
Well, he doesn't have the...
Or is he just Obama?
Trump is a historical figure. He is an incredible politician that was able to stoke really a movement.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to give him credit for that, whatever it means.
He literally stoked insurrection on our capital.
He is the only person who could pull that sort of thing off, I believe, currently.
Think about that, though.
And Biden doesn't. Nobody, look at it, even the people who are, do you know anybody who's like super excited just to vote for Joe Biden?
Have you ever seen a Joe Biden flag once?
No. I've seen a lot of Brandon flags.
Think about that, though. Like, that's this whole other thing. So, like, my parents loved George Bush, right?
W or HW?
Both. I mean, I remember, like, I watched all the GOP conventions and, like, Reagan family, right? Like, nobody was flying flags. Like, I mean, if you were like a Clinton guy, were you flying a Bill Clinton flag? Like, that's new.
Well, it is in the sense of when you go through generations, and generally you have these sort of figures who pop up and become almost idols in a way. You did have that with FDR. The reason he was able to get pushed through so much government spending and government program is because he did have that sort of pizzazz.
Reagan was a little like that.
Reagan absolutely
he was a little like that.
That is the Reagan era. Obama
with the one thing I thought started it in the modern day was Obama's change with the picture of him. It was like his portrait, and that was very borderline to totalitarianism stuff, like where we hadn't really seen just one guy's face.
And if you look at, you go back to Teddy Roosevelt had that sort of incredible following. So these things ebb and flow. And what we've gotten so lucky with in this country, and the reason we're still sitting here, and no, we're a very, very young country, but at the right moment, when it got to be the worst, we found the right person to get us through. We got George Washington. There's nobody else on the planet who could have got us through the way that George Washington did. I don't know if we have a country if it's not for George Washington. We go again. We have the one guy who can maybe pull off winning the Civil War and Abraham Lincoln. We get him. Like, we need another moment.
And he almost lost his reelection.
Yes, he ended up putting Andrew Johnson on the ticket, the only Democrat who didn't go to the South. And of course, he puts Andrew Johnson on the ticket and then dies. And Andrew Johnson becomes president, our worst president of all time. I hate the man. He set us back 100 years. Don't get me started on Andrew Johnson and how big of a dick he was.
So last year, I studied Native American history in the summer.
Empire of the
Summer
Moon.
So I've read that book. I have not seen the movie, but I read the book and Crazy Horse and studied all that. And Mr. Andrew is not a popular man among the Native American culture.
Now, you're thinking of Andrew Jackson.
I'm thinking of Andrew Jackson. Shit.
That's okay. Also, Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson also.
Yes, you're right.
I do not like Andrew Jackson. He should not be on the $20 bill. He bankrupt.
They hate him.
Listen, just because a guy named Nicholas Biddle said something about Andrew Jackson's wife, which actually Nicholas Biddle didn't say. Nicholas Biddle was in charge of the Bank of the United States. So that was a very important bank. Andrew Jackson, when he becomes president, decides to just shut that bank down because he doesn't like Nicholas Biddle. And it sends us into a terrible, terrible economic situation. I digress. Where were we at?
Well, we were talking about the future.
I don't know who the next person is. I don't even know if we know their name yet. But there is going to be, I hope, that there's going to be some sort of moderation figure.
Again, I just read her book, Liz Cheney. Okay. So if you would have said Liz Cheney's name 10 years ago, she's a Fox News contributor. Lefties hate her. Like, she's public enemy number one.
And that starts with her father.
Correct.
The sins of the father should not affect the sins of the daughter. But of course, in politics, that all trickles down.
Correct. But 10 years ago, she's hated by the left, revered by the right. Okay. Well, she stands up to Trump in January 6th and all this stuff. And basically gets exiled from her party and gets voted out of Wyoming. And according to her, and I thought it was a really well done book. She was standing up for the Constitution like that. It was a constitutional matter, not a political matter for her, whatever. She's still very conservative. Like, this is a very conservative woman. Could somebody like that, though, who she's not radical enough to get through a primary anymore. And I worry on the Democrats too, that it'll be like, we're just going to have a bunch of like AOC sneaking through the cracks, right? Like, you know what I mean?
You think that? And I understand but remember who is president right now.
Yeah. He is a very moderate man down to the core.
And
he leans left clearly, but he is
and South Carolina saved his ass last time around. The black vote turned out because they thought Biden was the best chance to beat Trump. And that turned out to be correct. I think one of the things that if I could just give you a little feedback that might change the way that you're looking at the future, is that if Trump loses in the way that I think he's going to, which I think it might turn into a rout, depending on how this debate goes.
This debate is worthless. It is a television product.
And obviously Trump is not as sharp as he used to be either.
It's going to be embarrassing. The whole thing's going to be an embarrassment.
It will be. But here's a couple things to consider. We do need to keep an eye on what's going to happen in the snap election in France. If the far right is able to gain power in France, if we're having the same thing in European elections, that will give us a little bit of a preview. If the far right is winning in Europe, that does tell us a little bit about how Western civilizations are acting right now. And that would make me pause and say, well, maybe I'm underestimating the far right's ability to turn out to the polls because of what we're seeing in Europe. But if Trump loses, like I think he might, the Republican Party is in ashes. The Republican Party will have to completely reinvent itself.
Which is a good thing for
and that's
everyone.
What I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that if Trump loses,
And there's no way
the
that
people like Kasich, the people like Romney are going to have more say in the phoenix that will come out of those ashes.
And I also don't think that like a Kamala Harris is going to be popular enough.
No,
because
Kamala Harris. No.
Biden's not popular enough for his VP to, like, so there'll have to be some reinvention over there too.
Absolutely. And I think you're going to, and politicians are not dumb. They want to do one thing, which is get elected. You read the tea leaves. We'll get a lot of information on exit polls. We'll have a better picture of where this country actually is after November. And then the politicians that are trying, like a Gavin Newsom, who clearly wants to be president, are going to look and say, okay, well, maybe people are ready for a more moderate take. And I think people are, especially after the vitriol that we've had over the last decade plus.
All right. We're talking about the future of our country. And there's not going to be a country if we get into a nuclear war. And
okay, I'm going to take another drink.
Take another drink of that.
This pod's supposed to come out Wednesday morning, but who knows if we'll be here.
So this whole thing started. We, again, a bunch of friends, and we have this group chat, and Hassel and I watched this Cold War documentary, and we got really into it. And then I read this book by Annie Jacobson called Nuclear War, and it outlines what would happen if we got into a nuclear war, and about how only the cockroaches survive. Okay. There's actually a pretty good theory out there that if we all die off in a nuclear war, which we probably would, that it would be like this, these rats and cockroaches would take over Earth.
Yeah, well, if you look at the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, we wouldn't be here if that asteroid didn't come down 65 million years ago. The dinosaurs,
they would have evolved.
The climate, they would have evolved, and they would have been the dominant species. Probably, we don't know how they would have adapted to the climate changing and all that. 65 million years ago with the glaciers and that. But it's the same way. If we die, the Earth's not going anywhere.
No, yeah, it's going to be
it
cockroach
will just keep
nation
evolving, and I doubt that there will. We'll just see what happens with the world, but we won't be around to see it if that happened.
I do think the geopolitical landscape is really terrifying right now, though. When you look at everything that's going on with Israel, right? So Iran, I don't know anything, but I thought it was a sneaky coincidence that their president just happened to get in
that was just fog
helicopter crash, man. 2 weeks after they launched some bombs over Israel.
Well, but can I just say that whole thing tells you exactly why the Israeli-Gaza war isn't going anywhere. What happened was Israel killed somebody that Iran wanted. This is before the president thing. Iran's like, we got to respond. So they let word through Saudi Arabia and other Arab nations to let Israel and us know, hey, we're going to throw some bombs and stuff at these specific targets. We're going to launch them over a long distance so you can knock them all down. And we can say to our people, hey, look, we tried.
You think that's what happened?
This is what happened, in my opinion. You look at, and then, because then what did Israel do? They fired at Iran. They hit some insignificant target, and the whole thing died down. It's because Gaza.
And then I think that the CIA got to that helicopter.
No, we wouldn't.
It's just my
opinion.
There's
no, because there's no value.
It's just my opinion.
There is no value in killing that president, because he already didn't have very much power in the first place. And there's 17 other guys who have the same view as him to throw right back in there. Why would you risk it? You wouldn't. And so if you look at the issue here is that even from Iran's perspective or America's perspective, is that Gaza, if you just look at it from an economic point of view, has no value added. They don't make any of their food. They don't have any minerals. They don't have any oil. They don't produce anything. So taking Gaza offline has no effect geopolitically. What we're talking about now is idealistically. How much does Iran, for instance, care about what happens in Gaza, that they're willing to fight? Clearly, they're not going to get involved. So we're in a situation now because the Israeli government, in my opinion, clearly has intelligence. I'm not talking about upstairs. I'm talking about their spy network allowed October 7th to happen, or didn't know about it, whatever, they must have not have known. And now Israel comes down. You'd think they're just going to clear Gaza north to south. They clear the north. Now they're in the south. Then it pops up in the north again. We are now in a prolonged, grinding war that I don't think the current Israeli government is capable of finding a way out of, because their intelligence obviously is not very good. And if you're Hamas, has it ever been easier to recruit? You're on your own homeland. You are now, you're being completely occupied. It's the easiest time to ever recruit. So Hamas is just going to be able to keep recruiting and keep popping up. I don't see how possibly Israel actually kills all of Hamas. I don't know how this ends. I don't see how it could end. But from the rest of the world's perspective, sadly, we don't care. We just don't care the way we care about Ukraine, and to a lesser degree what's happening in Sudan, which is, Russia, Ukraine are even fighting a proxy war down in Sudan. Why? Because there's tons of gold there. There's tons of oil there. But in Gaza, there's just no value added to the economy. And so I just see it going on and on and on.
Well,
because Hamas is willing to obviously hide behind.
You just went a mile deep, which is great.
Okay. We don't have enough time.
I was going to go an inch deep on that and then go about 2 inches deep on Ukraine, Russia.
Oh.
And then go about 3 inches deep on Little Rocket Man making love with not literal love, but figurative love with Vladimir Putin and that whole deal that went down last week. Here's my fear.
Yep.
My fear is an accidental nuclear war. Everybody's ramping up. If you've studied this stuff, you're going to find out in your documentary, there's been multiple times where we almost all died of a nuclear war, and it was always going to be accidentally because technology led us, the wrong direction. All I'm saying is there's a lot going on around the world.
Yep.
And it doesn't look great. And I don't necessarily, this is where it gets really interesting between like, what's the difference between the president, the Pentagon, and the CIA, right? Like, what does the CIA know that maybe
they're not passing along?
Correct. And that's been a part of our society.
It has gotten much better since 9/11, though. We've made a concerted effort to make sure that the lines of communication between all of our departments are better. I'm not going to say they're perfect, and these departments are run by human beings who have their own ulterior motives sometimes. But for the most part, we have the greatest intelligence service in the world. We kick ass at it. We're really good. We are the best. We know everything that goes on in the Kremlin. We have that whole thing bugged. We are inside of Putin's head. And
I do think that Putin and the Little Rocket Man doing their thing, I think it's a sign of weakness, because they both, like, Putin is screwed right now. I think he thought he was going to squash Ukraine in like a week,
and didn't happen.
And that didn't happen. And then there's all these economic sanctions. Everybody's turned on him. But here's my worry.
Okay, please.
So you've got Little Rocket Man and you've got Putin, and they're both pretty desperate, and they're both insane. That's the problem. No, they're insane.
These guys is not insane. You need to respect Vladimir Putin. I do. I despise the man, but he is a historic leader. He has.
Good job by Aiden to get the Putin up on.
Oh, look at that!
You got to watch these shows on YouTube.
Look at the amount
of.
Look at the amount of plastic surgery this guy's had. The amount of filler in his cheeks, in his jaw. You can see it. It's just incredible. What a strong man.
The Cold War doc on Netflix just gives you what you're saying. A deep. I have a hard time saying respect in terms of this guy. Understanding of how smart he actually was to do what he's done.
The difference between Little Rocket Man and him is the Little Rocket Man is in the position he is out of sheer luck.
Yeah.
Just the genetic ladder.
Born on third, thinks he hit a triple.
Yeah, that guy. Putin, that guy is ruthless.
We're going to have a target on our back after this.
He worked. Yeah, you guys are going to get hacked. Iowa everywhere is going to get hacked.
I know. The North Koreans are going to come after us. I just think that, like, desperation does an interesting thing to a man. Say what you want about Putin. Okay, fine. He's brilliant. Whatever we want to call him.
He's not as what he used to be. This move in Ukraine, was not.
He's no spring chicken.
Nope.
And I don't think he gives a shit about what he leaves behind.
I do.
Interesting.
He has in not just you can look around. I'm just stealing from other people's ideas. I don't know if I have an original one, but Putin really. He's not trying to reestablish the Soviet Empire. He's trying to reestablish the Russian Empire, which was a great power. And that's what he's trying to do. And he knows that if he looks at his population, it is absolutely declining. The world now is starting to move away from the fossil fuels that has propped up the Russian government for so long. And now Europe is like, well, we'll just get our oil from somewhere else. He knows that this is the only moment he has to actually try and protect and set up Russia to be able to become a great republic again. That's why he had to go after Ukraine. Ukraine is not just because there's oil pipelines. It has to do with NATO creeping into there. It has to do with the fact that Kyiv is the first city of the Russians. The historically, Kyiv is where Russia started. So if you're going to establish a great...
Kiev? Is it Kyiv?
Kyiv is how we say it.
Okay.
That's the Ukrainian way.
Okay.
Kiev, I think, is how the Russians say it.
Okay.
But
Well,
my Ukrainian Russian is awful.
I ain't speaking communist
No.
here.
Good.
All right.
But so he knows this, and also why Georgia. Just quickly, I'll try not to go too deep, but Russia is set up. They have obviously a massive landmass, but they are set up on the Eurasian steppe.
Really good line too. Offensive line this year.
The Iron Curtain from wrestling.
Yeah.
I think I missed your joke, but
Yeah,
I tried
was
to go with a
talking
different one.
college football. I was sneaking in the Bulldogs a little bit. You said Georgia. Get
Oh,
yeah.
my bad. See,
it's
I
all
was
good.
just so in geopolitics, I didn't even get
Yeah,
it.
no, it's all good.
But what happened, just for an example, so if you get past the Caucasus Mountains where Georgia is, you can just walk essentially. You can march your whole army right into Moscow. So one of the reasons why in 2008 and why now, again, Putin really wants to get Georgia is because he wants to move his border on to the south side of the Caucasus Mountains. So it's not so easy to attack Russia.
You're
Same
right.
with Ukraine.
It all has to do with NATO, and it feels like we've kind of kept sneaking closer and closer over there.
Absolutely.
And when I say we, it's NATO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're awesome.
And it's like if Ukraine's in there, like,
and Finland just joined.
yeah, it's like
Sweden
he's
just joined.
been isolated even more. And that's why I said this thing with Little Rocket Man really feels like a sign of weakness on his behalf.
Always. He's always been acting from a sign of if he was it's
But
always a weakness for him.
But the here's the problem, and this is what we go back to. So we agree on all this. The terrifying thing about all this is if our computer system sense that like a nuke is going off, which they would within like a split second of one of those things being launched because of satellites and all that stuff. Our nation's policy is to fire. It's called act on warning or something like that. And technically, it even if you don't know for sure. And that happened in the 80s. There was a guy who defied orders and didn't tell the president because he thought it looked suspicious. He didn't tell and it was a false alarm. It turned out to be like some birds that looked like nuclear bombs going through the atmosphere, intercontinental ballistic missiles. And this guy basically got erased. The United States government, like, even though he did the right thing and he probably saved the world, they ousted him. And my whole thing is everybody's hot, man. Like everything's hot right now. And you've got these two maniacs. You could say he's not crazy. He's a maniac.
Putin?
Yeah.
I don't see him that way. I see him
Look
as
at
a
these
calculated, a very calculated,
just a couple
politician.
guys going for a stroll.
He is. Listen, I think that whatever evil is, Putin has that running through his blood. I do not like the man, but he's not an idiot. He is in a point of desperation, but he also knows he tries to use a tactical. If he uses a tactical nuke, we already know NATO's on the record. We will destroy you conventionally. If he uses a tactical nuke, he's not going to use one of the big He'll use a small tactical nuke of anything.
The problem
and then
is
we will destroy him conventionally.
Most people think that if there's one nuke, there's going to be 100 of them.
And I think that is a conception that we have left over from the Cold War, from Hollywood. Even in your documentary that I'm watching now, when they talk about nuclear war, it's all doom and gloom. Now we hear you got to watch out for that nuclear weapon. You know, it's like, come on, you know, it's nuclear weapons are absolutely awful and they're the worst. They're the worst weapon we've ever created. But if one goes off accidentally, that's not the end of the world. It's just
no,
not.
but with the act, so the theory of this book, again, Annie Jacobsen, Nuclear War is what it's called. And I'm reading another round of Annie Jacobsen's right now. I'd highly recommend. It's called Area 51. It's basically like a history of the CIA and like nuclear weapons. And it's not like UFOs. You hear Area 51. Yeah. It's not that at all. It's
real. Like Area 51 is real, and there is legitimate testing, research going on there.
Yeah, they've blown up nukes over in that area all the time. Like it, and they're constantly. But the theory is like that I think like I always thought like, oh, we just shoot it down. Well, not really. Like that, we don't really have I think like they've tested all that and we shoot it down like 52% of the time. Mm-hmm. Well, and we only have 44 of them. Well, if somebody launches 100, you knock down 50% of 100. Russia.
That's it. Yeah, Russia's the only one.
Or Little Rocket Man. He could do it.
He can't do
it. What
100.
about China? What about China? Huh?
They wouldn't do it. No way. China knows.
What about Taiwan? This whole thing going on over there. We got that heating up.
Okay, I love Taiwan. It's one of my favorite countries. If you haven't been, go. It's incredible.
I ain't going there now.
You should go. It's going to be fine. Taiwan is the center of semi.
Fine.
It is. I'm telling you, China is not going to invade Taiwan.
I think he's so rosy for.
I am not rosy. I know how our military. We have this Navy that is essentially since World War II been dominating the seas. We have China completely locked in. They can't get out. If they decide to go to Taiwan, we can shut down their imports of energy immediately. They don't have enough resources themselves. That's why they have to get out of this. We've got them surrounded. From Japan as our ally, Okinawa. We have got Taiwan.
I love
we got
the Japanese.
We got the Philippines. I mean, we go all the way around. Come on. And you want
what about Vietnam? Do you see what happened there? Putin went there last week.
Yes. And if you look
what are they doing? They're trying to play both sides right now.
Of course they are. Vietnam has been invaded all the time. We have for us 20 years.
Yeah.
Right? It was 20 years of us there. Before that, it was what? I don't know. You might have to look this up. 200 years of the French. And then before that, it was like thousands of years of the Chinese. So Vietnam has to play both sides because of their geographical location. Don't look too much into it. You need to play. If you're Vietnam, you're little Vietnam. Yeah, you want to be good with the Americans. You want to be good with the Chinese. You want to be good with the Russians. That's how you're going to elevate your country. And I think a lot of times we forget how we think people act on good and evil, and instead they're acting in their own interest, which is usually, if hopefully they're a leader, it's aligned with their country's interest, which of course we know, like in the Sudan, that's not the case.
So you are less concerned about nukes.
I'm not concerned about nukes at all.
You really think these robots are going to kill us?
Yes, and I would just want to say, I think nuclear bombs have made us safer. I think they have made us safer.
You're a big deterrence guy.
I guess so.
That's a theory. If you don't know what that means, read about it.
Would you look up for just a second what DEFCON we're currently at officially? Are we at DEFCON 4, 3? I don't know. I'd be interested to know.
We got to 9. That was the most.
I think there's only 5. There's 5. It's 5.
Well, we got to the second one at the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah. That was number 1. Well, and 5 or whatever the top one is, you're dead.
5 is the nicest. 2 is next to.
Oh.
1 is means
you're dead.
Thermonuclear war.
1 means it's over.
2 is you're real close.
1 is hide your kids, hide your wife.
We're at DEFCON 3. Okay.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, we're currently at DEFCON 3.
Last change. Oh God. In the last year and a half, it went down.
I'm telling you, it's
shit.
Russia is dying.
It's dying?
Yeah. Yeah. Russia is.
That's exactly why I'm terrified.
But as they become more and more weak, they have these bombs. What
do they want? We gave them Sochi. We given them.
Yeah, we just let them walk into Crimea. Now they've occupied that.
And like in reality, if they didn't have all those nukes, we probably would be doing more in Ukraine.
We are. See, here's the great part about what's happening. I know that we're on the ground in this moment, and it feels it's really bad, and it's horrific what's happening in both Ukraine, in Gaza, in Sudan. I mean, it is absolutely horrific, catastrophically horrific. But if you look at the whole reason that the Cold War started, it was for us not to have a quick victory against Russia. It was to have a prolonged, slowly erode, degrade them over time. That's how we win. And that's where we're at now.
Isn't it crazy too, though, that we were on the same team?
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Like to think back at that. Like it was out of convenience. It wasn't out of
course.
But like you just look at like, okay, who's America's arch nemesis over the course of the country, young country? The British, we're best friends with them. The Japanese attacked us on our homeland. Oh, we're down. We're down with the Japanese, right? Like we're cool with Germany. And it was like our teammate in World War II that's like your number one nemesis.
Yeah, it's like when you bring Marcus Smart onto your team just because you need, you got to have it.
That's exactly it. It's like having Marcus Smart as your teammate.
And here's the thing. The Russians have never been good logistically. And we've seen that in Ukraine and Georgia. I mean, especially once Ukraine gets these F-16s, Russia's not going to win the war in Ukraine. They're not. I don't see how they're going to be able to hold on to the next region.
Can we please, before we move on, pull up the Ukraine is weak Seinfeld clip, just real quick?
Ukraine is weak.
But I'm going to take all my troops and I'm heading into the Ukraine.
But Russia historically has never been good with logistics. But what they are great at is manpower, and that's how they win. They win by war of attrition. And
you found a new place.
The only way they can actually win is if the West stops supporting Ukraine.
That checks all your boxes.
It's just not going to happen. And again, we'll see how if Trump does win, that could change the facts on the ground. But Western Europe is not going to allow Russia to win in Ukraine because Poland knows what's happening next. Finland knows what's happening next. We know, we've seen this play out. Russia will do this. They try and get the buffer zone so that they don't have to worry about the Eurasian steppe. And then they keep creeping and creeping and creeping and creeping. And Western Europe is not going to let that happen. It can't happen. And NATO could mop Putin off the ground
unless
tomorrow.
We start launching nukes, man, and then it's all over.
But we're not.
Nobody's shooting them down.
I'm telling you, we won't launch a nuke in response to a nuke if it's from a weaker power.
You're incorrect.
I'm telling you, we won't.
Well, I'm telling you
because
our policy says different.
Our policy is yes, but we are also involved in a lot of other allied groups around the country or around the world, and they have some say. And there's wiggle room on these things, Chris. There's wiggle room.
Do you have the Seinfeld clip? We got to lighten this shit up.
Are you sure you know where the impound is?
Oh, stop stalling. Come on.
I can't think. There's all this noise.
Or is it because I've built a stronghold around Greenland? I've driven you out of Western Europe? And I've left you teetering on the brink of complete annihilation.
I'm not beaten yet. I still have armies in the Ukraine.
The Ukraine. You know what the Ukraine is? It's a sitting duck. A road apple, Newman. The Ukraine is weak. It's feeble. I think it's time to put the hurt on the Ukraine.
I come from Ukraine. You not say Ukraine weak?
Yeah, well, we're playing a game here, pal.
Ukraine is game to you? How about I take your little boras?
Wonderful.
All right, you have
show.
5 minutes to convince me that we're all going to be dead from robots.
I always turn to people who are smarter than me, which isn't hard for me to do. And T.S. Eliot, I may paraphrase, said that the world will end not in a bang, but in a whimper. And I think that's the case. I think that even what you're worried about with nuclear war, I think that artificial intelligence will be able to figure out a way. We'll be able to utilize that to make ourselves safer when it comes to nuclear bombs. The problem is that when the AI decides that
it doesn't need us anymore.
Yeah. And
so it's like Transformers.
In all seriousness, you can see it. We continually just acquiesce more and more of our lives to robots.
Oh my God. Did you see the thing the other day where AI told Dave they wanted to like make some sort of like, I don't even remember what the topic was, but it was some crazy weird ass like immoral argument of like, and they wanted it to look like it was Dave Chappelle doing a stand-up speech, and like it fooled all
a
these
deep
people.
fake.
Yeah. And I watched it, and it's like, holy shit! It's like Dave Chappelle's just sitting there delivering this message, and there's people like laughing at it, like it was perfect. And it was
only
not
going to
Dave
get better.
Chappelle.
And it's only going to get, those things are going to get better. That's what I just see, is that as we continue to use our phones, like this is all giving more and more over. And at some point, AI is so powerful. I mean, I use it every day, multiple times a day. It's incredibly powerful. And it's just so much better at thinking. Maybe thinking is not the right word right now, but research at this point. And eventually, if we can figure out, or they figure out, the robots, how to think, be sentient, it's going to be really hard for us to stay on top of that. And I don't think this is going to happen in the next 20 years. But if you expand out for another 100 years, I think we're all probably having contacts that, or maybe even something inserted into our brain, like a neural link. And it just we could become more and more digital world.
I hope we don't live forever. Do you think we'll live forever?
I think that you'll probably be able to upload your consciousness. We're going to be able to figure out, I think, we're going to be able to figure out whatever makes consciousness happen in the brain, and reenact that in artificial intelligence, that you'll be able to actually upload your consciousness and you'll be able to live for however long you want.
So it's like dad died, but
his
I can
consciousness,
still talk to him.
Yeah, all of his memories, all of his he's there, and you can get a voice that will sound just like him. I mean, listen to this voice right here. This is ChatGPT.
Okay.
How long do you think it'll be before ChatGPT is able to upload consciousness? See what he has to say. Notice the uhs and ums from this robot.
I can't hear anything.
The idea of uploading consciousness, also known as mind uploading or whole brain emulation, is a concept largely found in the realms of science fiction and theoretical research. While significant advancements in artificial intelligence and neuroscience have been made, the technology to fully upload a human consciousness does not currently exist and is likely far from realization. Here are a few points to consider.
Anyway, he goes on.
I need another drink.
Yeah. I'm telling you, the movie Her, it's already here. I was on a walk. I have my earpiece in. I just say, hey, chat, I was wondering what was the poverty rate before the Industrial Revolution? And he just pops in right here. He's like, hey, Scott, I just looked that up. It was about 90% before the Industrial Revolution. It's about 10% now. Was there anything else you'd like? This is happening today. Think how, and this is weak compared to where it's going to be in a year and 2 years and 5 years. I'm much more terrified for what happens to our society, to our economy, when almost everything we do can be done quicker and better by a robot.
There you have it, kids.
Just think about like if you're ever convicted, like in your murder trial, you just upload and you did it, but you want to get off, you just upload all the evidence into an AI and say, hey, figure out an argument, a legal argument for me to be able to get out of this. Find some sort of shadow of a doubt. I don't know if that's going to ever be possible, but probably.
I'll be damned.
Yeah, Chris.
Well,
but first, I hope they fix male pattern baldness. I would like them to fix that first.
Just shave it, man. Just roll.
I've been on Propecia and Rogaine, and it's really helping. Actually.
Really?
Yeah, it's tremendous.
It
like
works?
Over the last 2 years, I've grown a lot of hair back. It's more full here, but
what do you got to do? Just rub the cream on there?
There's a little Rogaine is for the crown. You squirt. That's a topical, and then you take a pill for the Propecia, which is up here. It really works. Maybe we could get Roman to be a sponsor of this show.
Let's go.
Okay.
I'm in, buddy.
I'm in too.
This was kind of fun, kind of terrifying. I really enjoyed it. This was,
I think
it
is really fun.
I bet you that, I hope most people could have listened to this and just like don't run hot, just listen to a couple guys having a conversation.
And the reason that I come at this from a historical point of view usually is because it helps take the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
We almost always want to see war specifically as good versus evil. And outside of World War II, that's almost never the case.
Yeah, it's just
good luck finding a good guy in World War I. Okay? It's really rough. It's hard because war is messy and it doesn't.
Well, the American Revolution, we were the good guy.
Were we?
Yes.
Do you know the tactics we had to use to win?
I'm just saying
we would call that terrorism.
I'll take our side over their side.
Well, of course, no, you can have a rooting interest.
Yeah.
But whenever you get into the moral sides
for
of
our
things,
freedom.
That's a different conversation.
In democracy over a king.
That's right. And that's why the Constitution of the United States is probably the second most important document human beings have ever created behind the Magna Carta. It's incredibly important.
What about the Ten Commandments?
No, I don't think that's a document. I think that's
it's a stone
of stone tablets. Yeah, I'd put that in the top 5.
Really a good Netflix 3-part deal on Moses, the historical fit. Really good.
Oh,
really
I'll check
good.
That out. I mean, religious studies is. I know I got a minor, but I love that stuff.
It's one of those dramatized like documentaries. So they have like the historians, and then they'll like act out. I like those a lot.
Okay,
I tend to
if they're done well.
This one was pretty good.
Okay.
Like I mean, and pretty good. I thought.
Good beard on the guy, or do you have a?
Yeah, good act. Moses was a good looking man.
Was it a fake beard?
I don't think so.
That's good.
Yeah. Netflix, man, they're killing it. They've had a lot of good stuff
they got some good money.
Yeah, they're doing really good work.
And hopefully they don't hire robots to write all their shows and eventually hire robots to be all their actors. How many do you have a Roomba at your house now?
No,
we
used to.
You got a dishwasher?
Yeah.
See, that's how they get you. The robots, they get into your house, they start doing your dishes for you. The Roomba starts vacuuming. I mean, eventually you got a little R2D2 running around the house. I'm serious. It's going to have, we're going to have humanoid, before you die,
Rocky IV.
You're going to have a humanoid robot in your house.
Rocky IV, remember that?
No. Wait.
Rocky's brother-in-law had a robot, Polly.
It was a birthday.
I remember
present.
this now.
Yeah, yeah. And she like talked dirty to him and stuff.
Well, that's the other, there's so many, we maybe should just have that because the ethical questions that come along. Anymore. Well, no, they will. But with robots,
it's like bestiality.
Bestiality. Can you have a robot, or even
can you insert with a robot?
And of course, and you talk about pedophiles all over the world.
There, look at that. You think Paulie wouldn't make love to that?
He would. Are we going to make it a crime to have a robot that is, it's terrifying to think about some of these questions, but we actually have to try and figure out. We have to have discussions about these things because it's going to happen. It's going to happen.
It's going to be our robots versus the Russians.
We will win that battle, just like we won the space race.
He is Scott Siepker, allegedly. He is Scott Siepker.
Yeah,
we appreciate him coming in here on the CW pod.
Can I do one thing? Hey,
take a bottle listening? Of Steeple Ridge back with you.
Download Hoodoo if you can. If you want to see me,
give him a shout out.
If you want to see me get the Jack Trice documentary done, right now all my time is taken up with Hoodoo, so I just need you to list some projects there. Then I'll have plenty of money, and we'll make a Jack Trice documentary. We'll finish it. It's already halfway done.
HUDU.
Hoodoo.
He's Scott Siepker. Thanks to Aiden Wyatt for all of his geopolitical
insights. Can we ask him quick what's your review of this conversation?
To be honest with you, I don't really do politics.
This isn't politics.
We didn't want politics. Are you saying it was politics? This is geopolitics.
Yes.
I guess that's still politics.
Yeah.
It's in the word.
So not really.
I do think of it differently. Not domestic politics.
Yeah.
Do you like talking about the world wars, anything like that?
No, not really.
Okay,
Sorry.
well, don't listen to this podcast then, because you're going to be bored.
No, I still thought it was interesting.
Thanks, Aiden.
Thanks, Aiden. Really, it was great. This is just part one of a conversation.
Well, it's kind of interesting.
We're going to do this every week,
like different generations.
Yeah,
like ruining it for each other.
Yeah, you guys are going to fuck it up for everybody.
Listen, because see, from like my angle, it's like I don't even think it's your generation. I think it's the generation before you guys.
It's it's like our parents.
Andy Fails.
Yeah.
The Andy Fails generation.
I'm not gonna name names, but see, that's in like my eyes, that's kind of ruin it for everyone.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it is important for everybody to remember that the moment after we figured out how to use fire as a species, the old generation who didn't know how to use fire was looking at that younger generation and be like, they're so weak. They can't be outside and be cold. They got to cook their food. We used to eat it raw. And you know that's true.
And then the younger generation like looks at the older generation and they're like, those fucking idiots don't even know how to use Chat GPT.
Exactly.
They're just wasting their fucking time, you morons, you dumb boomers.
If you're not using Chat GPT now, you're falling behind.
Yeah, it really
Use
is.
it. It's incredibly
that
powerful.
book I'm writing, like I use it all the time for research stuff. Like it's just so much faster than
any of that like a press release. I never have to write a press release again. I give 5 bullet points to the robot. The robot kicks me out an awesome press release in 30 seconds.
Diarrhea with press release. All right. Now we really got to kill this. He's Scott. I'm Chris. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening here on Iowa Everywhere.